What's good, fam? Man, happy Sunday to all. Hope everybody's having a good day so far. Um, we're chilling over here, man. Just ready to talk some markets, trying to figure out where the money's at, so we can see where it's going. It's pretty much a game we try to play around here, and that typically comes from an assessment of information. Are people elated? Are people desperate? What's the temperature, basically? Just to say it funnily. That's what we want to find out. Are things hot? Are things cold? Because ultimately, figuring out how to look at this information is really the key, right? Because there's so much information out there. How do you know what information is valid? Listening to others talk about it is one way to figure it out. I watch other people that talk about the same shit that I talk about just to hear how they think about it. I hear the opposing side also, believe it or not, because I want to know what people that I think are wrong are thinking. Because if I'm missing something that I shouldn't be missing, I want to know, right? And that's something that's hard to do for a lot of people. I know it was hard for me at the beginning because who the hell wants to hear somebody that they think is wrong? Nobody wants to hear that. But when you remind yourself that it's about being critical of the information and objective as you can be, so that you can assess what it is you're trying to execute, well, that changes the angle a little bit. It makes it a little more palatable. It hurts a little less, and you're able to just power through it, which is what you want. You want to get through these things and do what you got to do to achieve your goal, right? And at the end of the day, that's what everybody's trying to do. So, when you're listening to myself and others, remember that your objective is to keep a critical ear, not a judgeful ear. Because that's easy to do. Like, oh, this guy doesn't know what the fuck he's talking about. Of course, nobody knows what the hell they're talking about. That's the point. That's why we're trying to analyze all these different things. Nobody really knows anything. I mean, think about it. Even presidents and whatnot, they don't know anything. They know how to figure stuff out, maybe, assuming they're actually playing that role and not just like on TV, right? So, whatever. But you guys get the point. Leaders and whatnot, like, they don't always have the answers. They have to figure it out sometimes. And that's how the cookie crumbles. So when it comes to investing and making life decisions, you are your own leader. There is nobody that's going to make decisions for you. There is nobody that's going to lead you to where you want to go. I mean, look at what these politicians have done. No matter where you look, it's a mess. So clearly, you got to lead yourself, right? And there's nothing wrong with learning from others that already know how to lead themselves to some degree. Because even those that know are still figuring it out every single day. And that's the important thing for people to realize. Everybody's human. We're all just trying to get to that next level. And there's nothing wrong with trying to lean on people that are where you're trying to go. Because guess what? They like what they're doing. That's why they're successful in it to some degree. And that's why they're the people to lean on to a certain extent. Because why not? So do yourself the favor. Don't be shy. Listen in. Be critical of the information that's being shared. Don't just be ready to just flow with it. Why is it good information? That's important. What is it? What is this information? Versus the other information. How does it compare to what you think or what you see in your area? Like all those things matter. All of that stuff matters because all that stuff is going to really outline your thesis, why you're doing something, why you're making a decision, etc., etc. So, just important things to note before we get into this and start talking about the news of the weekend. I mean, it's I wish I would have had a little time to look before we started, but it was busy just up to this morning. Um, and I guess I'll just start sharing my screen. Let's do this. Let's do this. And it's a nice Sunday too, so I won't be surprised if a lot of people watch this on replay because it is nice out there. I'm just taking a day off from being outside a lot. I went out early and I decided that since tomorrow is a day off over here where I live in the United States, that I'm just gonna be back outside tomorrow to doing what I'm always doing. So today is a rest day. And it's been nice so far. Just doing my thing. But let's get into this news, folks. Let's update this first. All right. Highness, vile, disgusting. Oh, I don't know what's going on there. Wonder what pile of crap she stepped in. That's funny. I guess we'll figure that out later on. But first, let's start with today's news. And I think we're starting here. Um, yeah, I think I picked up. Oh yeah. So we're starting here today, guys, and I'm afraid to say it, but excuse the sound in the background. Um, you gotta see the headline: California bill banning voter ID passes legislature, awaiting Newsom signature. Now, if you've been around the block a little bit, you understand what's about to happen here. And you got to understand that while we know the voting system is what it is, perception is also important. So the perception that's trying to be driven into people's minds right now um, is that you will be outnumbered. But the fact of the matter is that no matter how many of these so-called illegal or banning of voter IDs, they do, this is not going to be enough cheating possible for these people to make it look a certain way or make it look however they need it to. True story. They're not going to be able to do it because people, and I talked about this the other day. It's crazy. It's crazy. I've never seen America so united. If I would have known Kamala Harris was going to unite America so vapidly, I would have been hoping for this so much sooner. Everybody think it's Trump uniting America, but it's not. Everybody's disdain for Harris is actually what's bringing America together. Nobody likes this woman for they have zero reason, and every time she steps out there and tries to do anything, she just makes it worse on herself. So I personally do not know where this is going to go, but the media understands and has definitely reported on the facts to their higher ups in regards to their efforts to sway the minds not succeeding. So if you look at, and I'm sorry, but I need to talk about this so we can understand a little better what's happening here. Maybe I should do a stream on this specific topic. Maybe tomorrow will be a good day for that. We'll see. Let me think about this. Evolution of an invasion force. Um, So there's when you're fighting a war, there's a process that has been somewhat perfected over the years, as far as strategy goes. Um, and long story short, it's really not just hearts and minds, right? It's this whole series of tasks that you have to accomplish as a country that's trying to usurp another country. And the hearts and minds is, in my opinion, the biggest piece of that puzzle. Because you don't want to have to slash and burn a population that you can use or benefit from, right? So the smart thing to do is to get them to acquiesce to your way of life. And this is, in essence, what we've been subjecting ourselves to through media, American pop culture, as people like to call it. And it's important that we understand that these things that we accept into our minds are poison in a lot of respects. So we have to accept them with critical ear, and this is coming from a person that grew up listening to rap, and that's a destructive form of music, a very negative, exploitive form of music. But what can I do? My mind was molded by that crazy ass shit. So I have to be critical of what I'm listening to, how I react to it, what I think about it, and stuff like that, because it's not real. And, we all know it ain't real, but everybody else doesn't react the same way to that. So it's like having your ears to the street to a certain extent with respect to knowing what other people have in their minds, right? So music is a fabric of society, really, when you think about it, right? All these different musics relay the thought processes of a certain demographic, certain stereotype, because people gravitate towards music not just for the beats and sound, but also for the words. And if the words match to the person's psyche and feelings and emotions and whatnot, right? This is it's all similar, guys. This is all similar strategy. And when you look at what's happened in the United States over the past 70 years, it's been a systematic destruction of family values and systematic elevation of pop culture, such that even presidents have been actors. And that was all a function of that, right? So the idea is that you just accept whatever you're told by the stupid box because it's coming from the stupid box. And the people that are telling you all these different facets of what they want to tell you, whether it's the View or your homies that are brainwashed by the View and Ricky Smiley and them, right? All them people that don't have a clue what the fuck is going on, but they're getting paid. Dale Hughley, Steve Harvey, all them people, maybe they do have a clue. Maybe they're this fucking retarded that they think they're doing the right thing by taking money and pushing a person of quote unquote color, right? But they don't understand the political ramifications of what they're doing. And behind that, the societal impact of those ramifications, because California bill banning voter ID is going to be signed. And we're going to see what happens in California this year. It's going to be interesting. Let's keep going. The euro is a Frankenstein currency. And we've talked about this before, and this is really important to understand because, especially with the BRICS coming into the fore and people trying to get, I guess, in line for this new upcoming party because they're going to drop a currency. But you got to understand how that currency is going to be structured. So then, if the problems do arise, because they typically do, like they did for the euro, it didn't even take that long. It only took 7 years, 6 years. You're ready because the time always presents itself. Diluted our bloodlines, tamed us. Yeah, it's interesting because they definitely did that. And reason why people don't care anymore, we are a different quality of humans. Yeah, that's a good point. But at the end of the day, a lot of us, while a lot of us are mixed, a lot of us are not, and we really don't know anything about ourselves. Even if we are mixed, we don't know what we're mixed at all by. But about what? Like, what does a Scottish person actually know about Scotland? What does an English person actually know about England? What does a Dominican actually know about the Republic? We don't really know shit. And what's there is very scant. It's not really good information. So it's really tough. Even if you go look into American history, American history traverses all of the lands that are on this side of the continent. But when we think of America nowadays, we think of the United States, Canada, Mexico, all these different countries. But that's not the reality. The reality is starkly different. Looking back in time, apparently, there was just the Americas, and everybody had their tribe to a certain extent. And that was pretty much it. Whatever politics were literally local to the tribe. So there were no grandstanding governments and whatnot. Everybody did their own thing. And of course, there was beef, right? But how hard is it to confirm that? I don't know. It seems to be something that needs to be done. But how can we take somebody's word when we don't know who that person is specifically? Like we're living in a time when knowing everything about the person that's giving you information that's not verifiable physically, like the information I give is immediately verifiable because you don't even wait 24 hours and you see it. So it's immediately verifiable. Anyway, euro. So what was the problem with the euro? I mean, I hope the analogy of Frankenstein makes it clear. Um, when looking at a currency, what creates the value of the currency? Well, when we're talking about a currency that is supposed to back a bunch of nations, right? Let's narrow it down to one. Let's look at the United States currency, the dollar, right? What right now people are saying the dollar is looking bad because the deficits and whatnot. But when you look at the big picture, let's go all the way out here. When you look at the it doesn't give us all the data. When you look at the big picture, you know, let me get rid of this because this looks sloppy. When we look at this, we're basically in a downtrend, right? And this is 1985. This first candle all the way out here. So we're going all the way to 2022. So if I make this a line, what do we get? We got a downtrend. So this is what's really going on right now, right? This is the reality of the market. Now, here's something that's going to freaking not make sense to you for a while until you understand the plumbing of the system. Now, if the market happens to not roll over, which it looks to be set up to do, when you look at momentum, right? This market was making you highs while momentum is in the dumps relative to the past. You see, so this is solidifying the fact that this move upward is essentially done. And we're looking at 55 days. If I go out further, 89 days, What do you get? Let's see. You still get a downtrend. You're still in an uptrend as far as the moving averages go, but that doesn't mean that the 55-day and shorter are not going to dominate the upcoming price action. Because that's the thing you have to understand about price action is how it progresses through time, right? And the question ultimately is, what is price respecting? Is it respecting the biggest trend, or is it respecting the changes in the trend as we zoom in and zoom out, right? And for now, it looks like it looks like it's respecting the trend because it's bouncing right here on the 5-day, right? And when we zoom out of the 5-day, we go out to the 8-day, the trend is up. We go out to the 13-day, trend is up. Go out to the 21-day, trend is up. And how am I verifying that the trend is up? It's very simple. I'm just noting that the price is remaining above long-term moving averages and is in line with the quote-unquote short-term moving averages. But I just want to remind the audience what the measurements are here. The long-term moving averages are 144 and 100 and 233 periods. Whereas, Jesus, the delay on this thing is crazy. Whereas, alrighty. So these two are 144 and 233. This is 34, no, 54, 55 day and 89 day, I think. Jesus, why can't I remember? 34 day and 55 day, 144 and 233. And the yellow is 9 day. So when you're looking at a 21-day candle, right, these moving averages are even longer than what it seems to be. So the further out we go, the bigger the trend, the heavier the weight of the averages, the more serious the trend is, right? But when we're looking at this thing here, pretty important to note that we are in a downtrend because we are below VWAP. Then this is yearly VWAP, meaning this VWAP is the volume weighted average of all the prices traded so far this year. So because prices below that number, we're in a downtrend overall for this year. But when you look at the bigger picture, it looks like we're in an uptrend. So we got to watch how this is going to change, if at all. Right. And right now, as you guys can see, the dollar is sticking. It's sticking to its guns right here. So when we look at the dollar, what makes the dollar important? Ultimately, what makes the dollar important is the fact that it's used for trade all over the world. Right. And the reason that is because it's international currency. It's the base international currency. That's what everybody's agreed that it is. And, I just seen this comment, King J. And I gotta tell you, bro, that NPC mentality, it has stages. So even though some people think they're woke and all this shit, they're not really fully woke until they realize what the problem is. And even the people at the forefront of the problem don't realize that the problem is what they're relying on to fix the problem. And of course, I'm talking about crypto. But that's the nature of the beast. We live in a world where the lies are so layered that you got to really be ready to dig to get to the truth. A lot of people aren't ready to dig like that. So when we look at the value of the dollar currency, right, over time, it's it's considered this great currency. But when you look at it just on a chart, it looks like anything else, right? Because it got its up and downs. It's in a downtrend basically. Um, and it's a fiat currency. There's really nothing special about it. But when you hear people talk about it, you can't tell because they'll act like it's something else. But as we look at the chart here and we can see it's human. It's just another chart. Um, what underpins it is people's belief in what the attributes are, right? And that's why gold is so critical. Because when you look at gold and then you look at the dollar, just independently, not together, they're moving in what seems to be opposite directions. But are they? Because right now, the dollar is up, but what's gold doing? Let's see. Dollar looks like it's rolling over a little bit, right? So let's hold on, guys. Gee. All right. So dollar's curling up a little bit here on a 3-day basis, and when we look at gold, what is it doing on a 3-day basis? Has a slight rollover, but when we look at what the high is versus what the low is, or where the versus where it is right now, 270 versus 2536, that ain't shit. That's really nothing for gold, and the market is open. That's really nothing for gold. So it's kind of really still just floating up there. So this is a sign of two things. The gold market understands that the jig is up for gold or for the dollar. So it doesn't really matter much what the dollar does here moving forward. And that's kind of been the case for a long time when you look at gold. Because if you look at the big picture in gold, how long has it been going up like this? It's been going up like this since 2015. 2015 August to be exact. Oh no, that was when I bought. December 2015. So we're talking about 10 years damn near nonstop up. And something that people denigrate and talk about as if they understand it when they don't, clearly. That's why it's up 10 years straight. And it's going to go hyperbolic because you can only cap Mentos and Coke for so long. And this is a function of understanding the difference between a story, right? Frankenstein, euro, and the dollar, right? And the story that surrounds that, right? Because that's how you're able to see through the BS and actually call a trade big one, small one. Like that's the only way. Globalists are trying to escalate the Ukraine war into World War III before the U.S. election. Now, as we've talked about before, guys, they're trying to do anything they can. And I gotta say, God bless these Russian folk. They are playing these people like a fiddle because they're not able to get their way ever. And Russia just keeps progressing somehow. I don't know. It's just crazy to see. It's crazy to see. Human rights group, check this shit out. Human rights group calls on New York Times to retract propaganda hit piece against Shen Yun. Shen Yun are those acrobatic dancers from China. Everybody knows them if they're in New York because they've seen the ads on the subway. If you're in London, you know them too because they are in the tube too. And this shit was just crazy to me. Like the New York Times is out here doing hit pieces on dancers, yo. On dancers. Let's pull up a picture just so you guys can see what I'm talking about exactly. Hold on. Yeah, these Chinese acrobatic dances. You guys know what this is. You've seen it before. I mean, this is insane. You know, just because the CCP don't want these people doing it, being out there doing creative stuff, literally. I mean, it's insane. I could not believe my mirrors. I could not believe my eyes, but that's a real story. And there's a group, a foundation that helps those people, and they're backing them up and calling the New York Times out. That's what that's about. What the California AI kill switch bill means for decentralized AI. Leave it to California to fuck up a good thing. Car thefts have become a worldwide epidemic, in case you didn't know. And this is where your Lambo is there, Dante, in case you're looking. It got stolen. 50 Shades of Central Bank Tyranny. Now, if you guys are not aware, oh, typo. See? They're missing the T and the. Now, look, I'm a fan of the Brown Institute. They write good pieces, good educative and informative pieces. And that's the reality. You know, if you don't know and you want to learn, it's a great place to start. The United States has had a central bank digital currency since the late 1990s, or possibly even as far back as the 70s, depending on how you define it. And this is a statement I've even made before, if you've been paying attention. Definitions matter as a fact. And as a mathematician, a bootleg mathematician, excuse me, that was something that I really had to learn the hard way, because in order to do any kind of proof, in order to validate anything in mathematics, it has to be defined first. You know, how are you saying one is one if you're telling me one plus one is two? How are you proving that? You know, nobody can fathom having to prove something so simple, but yet so many think they're so smart, but can't even grasp a simple fucking definition of a word. And this is so true that society at large runs around calling pedophilic, rapist, murderers elites. It's hilarious to me. Every time I see that shit, I can't even engage with the content, even though I might agree with the general undertone of what the hell is being said. But the fact that the word elite is being used to talk about those people is comical. Comical. Now let's keep reading, because I really want to just get to a good part here. Just as the best-selling novel 50 Shades of Grey explores the complex dynamics of control and submission in a relationship, our financial system has evolved into what could be called 50 Shades of Central Bank Tyranny, and that's a fact. Now, do you guys know when the FICO credit score system was introduced? You know, let's do a little historical dive. History of FICO credit score. All right. So 1970s, we got the Fair Credit Reporting Act. That was requiring credit reporting bureaus like the RCC, which I had never heard of because I'm not that old. Retail credit company. Okay, but we're not reading all that, so we just gonna keep going. To open their files to the public, expunge data on race, sexuality, yada yada. Although the FCRA had a slight negative effect on RCC's reputation, the company remained intact in 1975 and changed its name to Equifax. How about that? I didn't know that. Over time, Experian and TransUnion were created, and these companies are now considered the top three credit reporting agencies. FICO scores in 1989. Even with such immense demand for the services of these agencies, excuse me, they continue to have difficulty interpreting and comparing their reports. To help find an industry standard credit score, they began working with a well-known tech company founded in 1956 called Fair Isaac and Company, known today as FICO. The result was the FICO score, which developed and utilized an algorithm very similar to the formula still used today. In short, the FICO score is not even 40 years old. And everything in our society pretty much revolves around that. So, yeah, you know, that's important to understand because what's the next evolution? That was a financial score, right? Right now, they're trying to line us up for a daggone social credit score, like legit, just like in China and all that. So it's very it's important to be aware of this. Each layer of our digital currency system peels back the seductive mask of freedom, revealing progressively darker shades of control. As we delve deeper, what seems like autonomy at first glance is only an illusion where more intricate and pervasive forms of dominance lay hidden. Its grip tightening with every layer. And this is what we end up seeing. Over time, our financial system has only become more repressive. It hasn't become supportive at all. And unfortunately, the society at large is too ignorant to understand what's happening. They just let it happen. Our politicians work their sleight of hand by manipulating language itself, which is something I really complain about a lot. This is why I'm such a staunch about definitions. To give a false impression, masking either a different intent or simply trying to gain the appearance of a victory with little or no actual underlying achievement. After all, the Patriot Act was anything but patriotic. Facts. The CARES Act, while sounding warmly empathetic, cared more about large multinational corporations and small businesses, about big pharma over American health, and overall, and above all, about the expansion of the surveillance state and protection of the censorship industrial complex over liberty and free speech of the American people. Things to be aware of, guys. This is happening every day. Here's why. This thread I retweeted this thread that you're about to see, and it's great. Here's why Democrats want to censor Grok's AI images. And if you don't know what Grok is, it is X's AI engine, which is of course controlled by Musk, so they can't control it. Aren't you tired of nonstop doom and gloom from Trump and Vance? So is everyone. That's why Kamala wins with joy. And remember, joy is a choice regardless of circumstances. In November, we can choose Kamala and choose joy. Let's see how. And then the thread contains all these AI generated pictures, apparently. And they're just not the typical pictures you see of her. We'll finally get universal health care, government run at no cost to the patient. Of course, it will be government efficiency too, and masses of doctors and nurses will immediately leave the system, so cancer treatment will often be too late. But choose joy. Kamala wins with joy. As a prosecutor, Kamala knows about police corruption and the danger the law enforcement officers pose to urban minorities. That's why she's been always been such a staunch proponent of defunding the police. Yes, crime might rise a bit, but choose joy. Kamala wins with joy. Republicans want school choice, but Kamala promises that your children will always attend strong public schools where the students may not be proficient at math or reading, but they'll know every neo pronoun by heart and learn every day to choose joy. Kamala wins with joy. I mean, this shit is crazy. Children know who they are inside. That's why if you're AFAB, I guess that's the thing. Assigned female at birth, daughter likes the color blue or spaceships, but you still insist on calling him her. CPS will take him to somewhere safe where he's allowed to choose joy. Kamala wins with joy. And one day, When that little boy grows up and faces the horror of having to experience female puberty, even despite a childhood of hormone therapy, Kamala will help him choose joy by ensuring he finds a surgeon for his mastectomy. Forearm phalloplasty. I don't know how to say that. Two. Kamala wins with joy. I mean, this is just bananas. Bananas. And this was days ago. I didn't even hear about this till today. Price gouging hurts hard working Americans in their pocketbook. Kamala will enact price controls to put a stop to it, mostly because it'll force low margin businesses like grocery stores, especially small ones, to close. But still, it stopped. Choose joy. Oh my God. America is a land built by immigrants and nobody is illegal. In quotes. Kamala said illegal in quotes. Kamala will abolish ICE, give immigrant aliens home loans and voting rights, and finally allow these industrious foreigners to contribute to our society without fear of deportation. Choose joy. And notice, these are clearly gangbangers because these dudes is tatted up, like to the neck. So they're not regular immigrants that they talking about. While it's terrible that anybody who is in prison, even convicted felons, have the right to be who they are, who they really are. That's why Kamala Harris is so insistent about using taxpayer dollars for sex change surgeries for inmates. Choose joy for these beautiful women. All right, man, this is going to be the last one I'm going to read because this shit is long as hell. A tax on unrealized corporate earnings is a smart way to make fat cat billionaires pay their fair share. Yes, homeowners could face annual taxes on their increased property value and ironically need to sell their homes to cover these taxes. But choose joy, god damn it, because that's how we win with Kamala. Now, I thought this was a little ridiculous, but it's important to know what these clowns are doing up here at these courts. Federal court upholds ban on Let's Go Brandon shirts in high school. I don't really know why they're opining on this, but they think it's worthy of their time, apparently. U.S. government's using tax dollars to fund woke counter disinformation video games. I just discovered this like last week. So I don't know if you guys knew this. Yes, they're literally putting money into video games. Woke video games. And guess what? Guess what? Guess how many people are playing them? Guess how popular they are? Not at all. Because nobody gives a fuck about that shit. So there's just tons of money wasted. This small U.S. agency victimizes millions of foreign innocents. And this is kind of the industry I was working in. This is how I know a lot of the things that I know. Because this is the world of cross border financial controls. And this office is a nexus of the U.S. Treasury. And it's called the Office of Foreign. Oh, I think I already said that. But everybody usually calls it OFAC. That's why I didn't think I had said that. So OFAC is this entity that determines if you live offshore, what you're going to do here onshore, and vice versa. The Freedmen's Bank building doesn't house CIA or Department of Defense officials, but rather the U.S. Treasury's little known OFAC. Instead of orchestrating airstrikes or insurgencies, these bureaucrats impose mass suffering via economic warfare, collectively serving as the tip of the spear that is America's ever expanding economic sanctions regime. So whenever you hear these people crying about putting sanctions on somebody, these are the people that are doing it. Russians, Iranians, whatever. The term banality of evil, in quotes, was coined by intellectual Hannah Arendt after she watched the 1961 trial of Adolf Eichmann, the Nazi official who, from his post atop the inscrutably named Office 4B4, and that's 4 in Roman numerals, and then a regular 4 after, oversaw the grim logistics of funneling Jews into German concentration camps. Arendt said she was struck to find Eichmann neither, quote, excuse me, Eichmann, quote, neither perverted nor sadistic, end quote, but, quote, terrifyingly normal, end quote, rather than a rabid ideologue or a psychopathic anti Semite. Arendt found herself observing a boring bureaucrat whose diligent performance of his assigned duties was largely motivated by a mere desire for career advancement. Quote, the deeds were monstrous, but the doer, at least the very effective one now on trial, was quite ordinary, commonplace, and neither demonic nor monstrous, Arendt later wrote. Her characterization sparked great controversy. In subsequent decades, some historians have challenged her assessment of Eichmann, and philosophers have wrestled with her proposition that one can do evil without being evil. See the problem? In subsequent decades, some historians have challenged her assessment of Eichmann, and philosophers have wrestled with her proposition that one can do evil without being evil. Think about that, guys. Really, really hard. I mean, she nailed exactly what's going on in society right now. Got a bunch of commies that don't know that they're commies being commies. Just following the orders, boss. Whatever the appropriateness of Arendt's application of the quote banality of evil end quote to Eichmann, it's safe to say the individual employees of OFAC, mostly lawyers of course, similarly aren't perceived by people around them as malevolent. If you live in the vicinity of the capital, an OFAC worker might be the congenial coach of your child's soccer team or a friendly face at a volunteer event. However, regardless of their personalities and sincere convictions that they're engaged in quote unquote public services, quotes mine, the stark reality is that many OFAC employees spend their workdays carrying out the mass victimization of people who've done no harm to the United States or its citizens. To paraphrase Arendt, these people may be quite ordinary, but their deeds are monstrous. And this is how America has utilized the currency to invoke pain on foreign people for one reason or another. Nancy Pelosi says the quiet part out loud to Bill Maher. If you guys aren't aware, she was on with Bill Maher, I guess, a couple days ago, and she wasn't shy. Just in, Donald Trump promises to deport the Venezuelan gang members who took over apartment complexes in Aurora, Colorado. Not sure you guys heard about that, but this is a true story. So yeah, this has actually happened. And be advised that these people are aware. Everybody from the local police force in Aurora all the way up to the feds are stating that they can do nothing to help the situation, if you can believe that. Now, back to Nancy Pelosi. She states that the goal of the Democrat Party is to convert undocumented immigrants, aka illegals, into documented immigrants. Let's listen in. Might be interesting. No sound. Really? Oh, shite. Hold on. I know why. Sorry about that, guys. We'll start it from the top.
The California lawmakers just passed a law. It hasn't been signed by Governor Newsom, but giving government assistance to undocumented immigrants to buy houses. That's kind of a different place than the Democratic Party used to be on immigration. Now, I'm not going to say that's what the country's going to do, but that's certainly where California is.
Well, let me just say, immigration had always been a bipartisan issue. I refer you to
But not free houses.
Well, it's not free housing. It's the American dream being available to more people. But understand this about immigration. The best speech on immigration was by President Ronald Reagan. This is the last speech I will make as President of the United States. I want to communicate a message to the country I love. And he talked about the Statue of Liberty and the beacon of hope it is to the world, and what America was preeminent in the world because our door was always open, and we will cease to be preeminent when we shut the door. Now, I don't do justice to the great communicator. Google it. It's a fabulous speech. And George Herbert Walker Bush continued in that respect for the diversity of America and the rest. Now, California's always in the lead. Maybe others will follow that lead, but that's up to those states. But excuse me?
So you'd vote for this law?
Well, I'm not familiar with exactly what it is, but making the American dream of home ownership available to all people is something we have to do for people who are here now.
This is before your resolution. This is undocumented. This is for the undocumented.
Well, what I would like to do is move them to documented. The fact that we can move them to documented. One of the best things that we can do for our economy is to pass comprehensive immigration reform.
Look at the pin on her lapel. That pin on her lapel is really an Israel flag, if you know better. Hilarious. So yeah, they hide nothing. But let's see what she said in the past. Let's catch them scheming in real time, because that's how they work. "2008, Nancy Pelosi on the left.
We need to address the issue of immigration and the challenge we have of undocumented people in our country. We certainly don't want any more coming in."
Well, there you have it, folks. Straight from the horse's mouth. And yeah, just understand that evil has no problems achieving their goals, which is fucking you over. Is this why Warren Buffett dumped billions worth of Bank of America stock? Let's see what they're talking about. And if you've seen the thumbnail to this stream, you have been given a pretty cool preview to a very not talked about often metric, which is the U.S. stock market cap to GDP, aka the Buffett indicator. Now, what I'd like to highlight is the negative divergence. We were lower here in terms of nominal value, and we're higher here in terms of nominal value, and the opposite is true here. We went very low here in 2009. So we had a positive divergence here. So, or I mean, an inverted divergence here, because it should have been opposite. Here it's appropriate. Here it's inverted. All right. Buffett's let's see. Buffett's stock dumps could be driven by looming recession threats and the Federal Reserve's interest rate cutting cycle, which could begin as early as mid-September and dent the bank's interest earnings. Or perhaps the 94-year-old billionaire has increased cash reserves to record levels because of elevated stock valuations. I can't read today. Amid the artificial intelligence bubble. Whatever keeps Buffett up at night about BOA has certainly been intriguing across institutional desks, FinTwit X, and various financial media outlets. Some believe this could be a critical market inflection point. Since mid-July, the billionaire has trimmed about 13% of its BOA stake, generating 5.4 billion in cash and adding to Berkshire's record cash holdings, of course. The billionaire has remained silent about the stock dumps, obviously. Bloomberg noted Buffett sold an additional billion worth of stock last week. Another potential reason for Buffett's sudden stock selling could be the fear that U.S. regulatory probe into anti-money laundering surrounding fentanyl cash laundering at TD, Toronto Dominion's bank, could expand to major U.S. banks. Ouch. In a conversation with Sam Cooper, an investigative journalist behind the Substack The Bureau, and David Asher, a former senior investigator for the State Department, Asher revealed, and most of what we're seeing is coming from this TD Bank case, and there's a lot more. We'll see which one of the big four banks gets named next. Interesting. Interesting. I was not aware. Good stuff. Check those guys out, and I will report back to you guys. All right, let's see what we got left. Data centers. Oh man, this is driving me nuts lately. I don't know if you guys are aware of this stuff, but hot topic over the past few months in markets. Electricity, demand for electricity, all this craziness. Let me see what the market is at. Perfect, right on time. Um, time to sell this bad boy. Give me a second, guys. I'm not ready to trade really, but it looks like it's ready. 1954. Oh yeah, it's already going. Come on. Nice. Um, so I don't place trades on my desktop. I place them through my execution platform on my phone because I really don't like dealing with the lag that you get on the PC. I'm gonna actually get a new PC here soon. Um, just to see if it's because mine is old. Because I've had this PC. Actually, no, it's not that old. It's probably a few years old. So we'll see. I'm gonna play around with stuff for a little bit, and we'll see what happens. Anyways, all right. So that's my first entry here. Let me see. So yeah, it looks good. I like the way it looks. 50 handles is what I'm playing for. So that's a move to down here from 90 to 40. See if we get lucky. If the market gets nice, then I'll know to, you know, yank it a little bit. Oh, we weren't done with the stories. Excusez-moi. American electricity. So I don't know if you guys are aware, but now all of a sudden there's this superfied interest in expanding the electrical bandwidth that America has, or the capacity, the electrical capacity that America has. All of a sudden, everybody's interested in expanding it to ensure that these data centers have what they need to run and do the spying that they need to do on you. I mean, that's ultimately what it boils down to. It's important to understand the facts, guys. And that's pretty much what it is. It's important to be aware of, reality. So, 30. Yeah. That is what this is all about. So let's read a little bit. So data centers in spy country, i.e. Northern Virginia, face 7-year hookup wait. That's how much demand there is already. That the 3-letter boys got to wait 7 years. Them. Imagine that. Since the beginning of the digital age, most of the world's internet data has flowed through massive data centers in Northern Virginia. The area is known as Data Center Alley because it's home to the world's largest concentration of data centers. Some call the area spy country because of the number of data centers used by the CIA and other intelligence agencies. The proliferation of AI data centers across Virginia's Loudoun County has created a massive bottleneck of delayed hookups for large data centers by energy supplier Dominion Energy. According to Bloomberg, because of the surge in hookup requests, data centers that require more than 100 megawatts, which is a lot of electricity, could take 1 to 3 years and or as long as 7 years to be wired into the local power grid. The longer wait time applies only to large data centers that need more than 100 megawatts of electricity and won't affect projects that have already been evaluated, according to a letter the company's transmission arm sent its regulated utility as well as co-ops and local utilities. Almost all loads that big in diminished territory are data centers. So it's pretty clear that there's plenty of demand already for this specific nexus of electricity. And what's interesting is, what are they telling certain people in certain instances when there's electricity demand? Use less. I mean, if this isn't a slap in the fucking face to humans, I don't know what is. This is crazy. So just something you guys need to be aware of, because electrical rates are going up. And guess what? We're going to pay for that. They're not going to pay for it. FBI repeatedly botches child abuse investigation. New reports find. Nothing new. A scathing new report from the U.S. Department of Justice Office of Inspector General, maybe I should go work there, has found that the FBI has repeatedly failed to comply with its own policies and federal laws regarding the handling of tips on child sexual abuse. The audit, which follows up on the infamous mishandling of allegations against former USA Gymnastics physician Lawrence Nassar, uncovered significant gaps in the Bureau's response to serious allegations involving suspected child abuse. Now, if you guys been around the block a little bit, you know that all these people just do that kind of stuff. They're into pedophilia. The audit covering the period between October 2021 and February 2023 scrutinized 327 incidents of alleged hands-on sex offenses against children and found that the FBI has been non-compliant in key areas, including mandatory reporting, victim services, and timely responses to ongoing abuse. Incredible. Particularly concerning is the revelation that 13% of the reviewed cases were flagged for immediate attention. due to substantial deficiencies that could have left children in harm's way. Disgusting, man. 20 migrants attempt to board California school bus full of children. How about that? Yeah. That's all I got to say to that. I mean, that's just something else. Trump apparently endorses Florida marijuana measure, calls for a public smoking ban, however. Weak. Yeah, we already know this Walsh guy is a fake hero. Imagine having to lie about military service. You gotta be pretty weak for that. Trump to vote no on Florida pro-abortion ballot initiative. IRS lagging in complying with order not to raise audit rates for under 400,000 orders. That means that they're auditing people under 400,000 at rates that they're not supposed to be. Harris accidentally admits the economy crushing Green New Deal is her real agenda. Whoops. This is what people have been talking about. Oh my. What a moron. She slipped at the mouth.
Generally speaking, how should voters look at some of the changes that you've made, that you've explained some of here in your policy? Is it because you have more experience now and you've learned more about the information because you were running for president in a Democratic primary? And should they feel comfortable and confident that what you're saying now is going to be your policy moving forward?
Dana, I think the most important and most significant aspect of my policy perspective and decisions is my values have not changed. You mentioned the Green New Deal. I have always believed, I've worked on it, that the climate crisis is real, that it is an urgent matter to which we should apply metrics that include holding ourselves to deadlines of time. We did that with the Inflation Reduction Act. We have set goals for the United States of America and by extension the globe around when we should meet certain standards for reduction of greenhouse gas
Did you guys catch that hijack? Oh my
emissions,
God.
as an example. That value has not changed.
All right, so she admits a couple things here. A, that she's still in line with the Green New Deal, and B, that she's a globalist. Let's hear it. Let's rewind.
To deadlines around time. We did that with the Inflation Reduction Act. We have set goals for the United States of America and by extension the globe.
By extension, the globe. They didn't catch that on the headline, but we caught it because we analyzed everything. All right. So yeah, that's where we're at, guys. That's the goods. That's what these morons are doing. Um, you know. Yeah. I don't know, man. I don't know. So you guys see gold still floating, commodities. They're gonna be entering their own sphere now. With the dollar putting pressure on things, it's gonna right, and that's what we're seeing here. Even though we gotta move how markets can line up here, is we still have some relative interest in the long side of the market. What we'll have to be on the lookout for is a break of this area, 72 half. Anything below that will more than likely invalidate this negative divergence here, unless we're going to come here and retest this same low. And if we retest that same low, then what that means is we'll make a higher low around the same area, which is definitely going to probably lock in um, this low move here. Because as you guys see, it takes crude a while to find its legs before it makes a move up. Right? It takes some time. This is the 6th of December through 2 months, 5th of February. This is May to the end of June. So a couple months each time. If we're gonna go by early August, 5th of August, then we gotta at least look till October 5th. And that is interesting because speaking of October, let's go back to my early trading days when I really had no clue what I was doing. Um, and let's go to 2010. Let's see if we can pull this up. Yep, we're in 2010. Or let me just pull it back a little bit. Bam. Yes, sir. Your boy was buying definitely around here. I had no clue what the hell I was doing, but I knew I was long crude though. And I rode that bad boy. Rode it. I think I got stopped out probably around here because I was doing real simple stuff back then. Wasn't doing nothing fancy. And this is just cyclical things, and you guys can see here the market was trying to find its legs too. Same thing happened previously also. So I guess my point is that these markets don't really change much. You just got to understand what they're doing and what they're trying to do. And that's just how markets work. So now we already have an idea, right, of what the market could do if things do get similar to as risky as they were back then. Because back then, the block was hot. The block was hot, man. So that's important to understand. Let me check something real quick. What was the settle? Oh, we're way below. Um, Give me a second, guys. Yeah. Yeah. So understanding that, like that, understanding those little quirks about how price moves and stuff like that. Like that stuff is what makes the difference between a great decision and a good decision, really. And that takes time to learn. Um, and not being shy about thinking that what you're seeing is what you're seeing. You're not crazy. You have eyes. You know how that works. So use it accordingly. I think when I share my screen, my computer just or my screen just doesn't move as fast because it's doing all that crazy shit. Yeah. Um. So I'm literally short uh Nasdaq right here, 590 and 591, and it looks like a short if you look at it, right? If you're looking at the big picture, you see momentum is kind of peaking, right? You have volatility triggers going off on smaller time frames, and then it's not easy to see here, but let me make it a little obvious here. See if I can pull up. Nope. Oh, that's annoying. All right, so I'm just trying to make this align so you guys can see the point I'm trying to make. So volatility triggers, and this market has already failed to reach a newer high, right? However, volatility is exhausted. So my thinking is that if this market is done moving up, well, I can't be wrong trying to take shorts up here, and I have a 30 to 40 point area to play with if I'm wrong. So zooming in, I saw that the market had essentially decided that it had went from one area and I'm trying to find these damn. There we go. The market went from this area and is now essentially making a new lower area. So that's why I decided to go short there. How low this goes, I don't know. It could stop right here at 55 because it's a logical point to stop in a bull trend for this price frame. And I call it price frame because I think of these bars as dollar amounts instead of like candle time or whatever. Like people normally think of that stuff. So that's what I'm looking at here. We'll see what the market decides to do. So far, I'm good for 10 points, and that's great. But the goal is to make at least 50. And typically, once I'm up 30, I start looking to see what, if anything, could continue, to pull the market in my direction. If the market is going to continue in my direction, and looking at volatility into the close on Friday, you have this bunch of downward slopes, really. Um, but the interesting thing is that the market, what does the market do? Well, it finds a reason to go up all the time, or at least volatility, right? And that's the thing to kind of wrap your head around as a day trader, right? Because we're trying to extract value from the market. Oh crap! Hold on. Because we're trying to extract value from the market in ways that wait, give me a second. Short three, uh, limits CB. All right, so we'll leave AB and we'll change C. Yeah, let's go with. All right. So the idea is to understand that even if the market is going up, even if the market is going down, nothing moves in a straight line, right? So if nothing moves in a straight line, that means there's got to be ebbs and flows. And if there's ebbs and flows, that means that there's opportunity to extract value from, right? And that's essentially what the market is showing us here, right? That's why VIX pops up, market pukes, and you can make money on the short side. And then once VIX is done popping up, you can buy the dip and make money on the long side, And all you really have to do is identify those patterns that the market is presenting to you and exercise risk management so that you're not overcommitting at one time. And that's really all you got to do, man. It's not really rocket science. But people have a hard time being definitive about taking losses because they don't understand that they just haven't found the proper entryway for the market, and that's really all it is. And look, the market could really bounce right here because that's what these levels typically signify. The fact that I'm short right here right now is pretty risky. So I'm really playing on the moving averages and not trying to fade them and referring to the level as a point of follow through, assuming that my analysis of momentum and price structure is accurate. So that's basically what I'm doing right now as far as being short with the market. But anyway, let's go back to the big pick. So if the dollar is putting pressure, and it's up right now, some small, but it's up. But if the dollar is up, right, that's going to put pressure on everything else, right? Equities, all types of markets. So that is exactly what we're seeing right now. Zoom in here, right? What do you see? Well, what you see is that we've hit the yearly outer band for VWAP. And typically, when a market does that, it's gonna hard, kind of how it puked hard here, right? So it's the same thing, opposite, right? So it's just like it recoil probably do something like this here. So let's see what interest rates did. Actually, no, we're not going to do that. We know that we're looking at a time period of August or July 23 through the fall of 23. Okay. So anytime we look at any market, that's the frame of mind we need to have when looking at it. August 23 to the fall of 23. What happened with crude? Shot up, but it started shooting up before then. And we're already essentially kind of late to the party if it's going to stick to that same motif. So it'll be interesting to see what actually happens with crude if it is going to actually go up. Because it went up and it went up into, it actually was quicker than the move. It ended sooner than the dollar move, interestingly enough. Let's see what cotton looked like. Cotton went up during that period. July to went down. August, July to the fall. Sensible. So it's sensible if a dollar falls now. Copper, it fell August to the fall. It was just sideways to down. Interestingly enough, heating oil followed the trajectory of crude oil at that time, flat to up to 72.50. Yeah, it really didn't do much until after fall. Because this is also a seasonal trade. So after the dollar committed to rolling over, that's when that gas kind of popped up, but then it ultimately rolled over anyway. Just took a while. Palladium, that was being manipulated by JP Morgan and saying, they paid the little funny fine or whatever. Palladium, platinum, both of those markets were being manipulated. Same deal with gas. It ripped along with crude oil around the same period of time. So we'll keep it moving. Silver. Interestingly enough, silver went opposite of gold up until August, then sold off into the fall, but then got bid again. But then ultimately sold off. But it had a nice little chop session before it actually did. So now we're entering all these currencies. And of course, these currencies are just going to be the inverse of the dollar, right? So from July to the fall, they're just going to look down just like that, all of them. The, the one I don't expect to be similar is the Swiss franc. That's the pound. And that, of course, is going to be pretty much the mirror opposite of the dollar. Japanese yen, of course. What is this? New Zealand dollar, same deal. Swiss franc followed suit. How about that? So it was a real move. So we'll see. We'll see because this is really a driver for markets, as you guys can see. This is no joke. So let's keep looking at what markets were doing during that time. And as you guys can see, equity markets sold off. So it would not be fair. It would not be incorrect to assume that markets are going to do the same thing now if currencies are during that period of time. And that's what created the low. NASDAQ index, we looked at the SPX, S&P 500 index. Now we're looking at the NASDAQ 100 index. it didn't look like it because the moving average was so bullish, but when you take the moving average off, that's what happened. It went from 15.9, 16,000 to 14,200. Not much of a move, but it still went down. But when you get a move like that where it's a shallow retracement, that's how you know it's not a real move lower. And you got to buy that dip. SPX, maybe S&P 500, same deal. Taiwan index futures, just same deal because it's Taiwan, so that's basically semiconductor chips, right? That's why they're made. Many Hang Seng China Enterprises Index, and this is just, I guess, a small version of the Bitcoin for it to look a certain way, and I'm out. But I'm expecting this thing to continue because China has been um, all this weird stuff that is very against it right now. So I just think it's a great time to be long in it. So that's how I trade the market. Just sentiment changes. That's the best way. Then you guys will see through time. First, this is the move index. This is just like the VIX, but for bonds. Up is bad, down is good. Nothing new there. Bonds looking like they're catching a little bit here. And again, it's like we talked about before. The overall trend can't really be long. We can't really be down for much longer because that market has been selling off for 4 years straight since 2020, February. We're about to hit February 2025. Not far from that. So this market cannot sustain much of more of a down move. You can see some sideways action for sure, but be cognizant of structure has changed significantly. These are just 5 years, different bonds, but it looks too crazy to ever analyze. Like, yep. So they're now showing Z's in trading view. All right, this is just the yield. The yield, of course, is going to look the opposite. We were just talking about the VIX, and your VIX looks here. It doesn't look anything like it does here, right? So how would you know to get short from looking at this? I mean, you wouldn't know. You would have to go in and hopefully you get some type of sign from the market, which is pretty hard to get from the VIX as you look at it like this sometimes. So I just don't. And I guess if you had to pick something similar, this is probably the most similar view that the market can give you right now, but it's not even that great compared to that, and that's really what you want. You want something that's clear, not something you're guessing what the hell, you should be doing. Just a little pro tip there. Volatility of VIX trending down. And you guys should know there's volatility. So we're just looking 30 days out to see what the volatility readings are doing and keeping it at that. We're not taking too much time looking into all the mysteries of the VIX and whatnot. Okay, so interesting to note that the short-term moving averages are essentially bearish here. So you gotta keep an eye on Coco because if this thing is gonna roll over like it looks here, And it for us for example breaks this 65.90 level, which I have marked off here. If it breaks that, it's pretty much it, because that's a loss of the flag, the flag structure that the market is giving, because that's what's basically been happening over and over again. So this is what would be the flagpole, pennant flags or whatever. You can use Google it. I'm sure they got like stuff on that. And the idea is that ultimately price is going to break this trend, and when it does, I doubt we're there yet. But let's check. Let's do a line check. Yeah, nah. So we got okay. So yeah, no, we're not there yet. I would defer to these peaks, these two right here, than any other ones, because we'll let the market kind of decide what makes sense. And if this 62.70, for example, goes after 65.90, I mean, that's just further evidence of the trend change. Nine is already an area that's we're close to. Um, I can't see what this is, but we're below it. 78.30. This could be a big trade. It could be a big trade with volume momentum. I wasn't even looking at it. Hold on. Over, I'm sure at 34, and it's crossed the moving average. So this is what I mean. So let's take a look at this. When I mean, wave in and wave out, the 55 day is the biggest measure of the wave that we have here. So if we go down to 34 days, we got to be, it's rolling over already, right, to some extent, but we're not by the moving average. But if we go to the 34 day, it's already crossed it. We go to 21 day, we're already pretty much under it comfortably, right? And the more you go in, the more, bearish the picture gets, because you're zooming in and the market is already doing something already, like it's on just on a different frame of mind. So if this trend is going to continue, whereby people are exiting the market, you got to find a way to an exit plan, and that's ultimately what these lines end up giving. And that's why you got to do all that stuff to kind of identify risk parameters. This is supposed to be milk, but this thing trades crazy. I can't ever keep up with that. Feed the cattle again. We already went over this last week. Is on a downtrend, so it looks like it's just bear flagging. Um, However, keep an eye on this, because it looks like it could be finding some support right here, just based on momentum and volatility and volume. I cannot tell what's going on with these lean hogs, but they're ripping right now. That's all I can tell you. Even though the chart is all over the place. Coffee seems to be running into some resistance up here, interestingly enough. 55 days, 34-day candle. All right. Well, way back to the 70s. So, coffee's just chilling out right here, basically. And if it is going to respect the range, well, you got some pretty good idea of how probably not going to go if it's not going to go. And if it is, then, you know, you have an idea of what could potentially be. I mean, imagine this coffee thing, this coffee contract, just to give you guys an understanding of what is going on here. I don't know why I keep doing this. I know it's not going to give me all the data. Sorry, guys. All right. So the all-time high, came in the 70s during the last inflationary pressure scenario that we had to live through as a country. And imagine the reality that the currency that we deal with now is significantly worse and significantly valueless than it was 50 years ago. So imagine if this market just fucking doubles. It goes from 250 to 500. I mean, we're living in times where that could happen. That's what's crazy about it. And it's hard to imagine it, but it's definitely something that could materialize if we're not careful as a society. Live cattle futures seems to be finding a bottom here because it's just like chopping up here. OJ, another victim of a big trend. Once there's a problem in that market, it becomes a widespread thing because these plants get contaminated really easily. So this is why you see all these whipsaws in these markets. You know, if you zoom in, we're right now looking at 55. So 12 of these is a year. And, you know, when you look at these markets, you see that there's a lot of trends, vertically, up and you caught one. So it's a good market to trade. Sugar just hanging out up here. And again, it had a wedge. It already broke out of it. And as you guys can see, it's doing the business. So right now the market should pull back to this 18, 19 area if people are lucky, if they're not in yet. And if they're really lucky, it'll go all the way to 18 half down here, 18 and a quarter. But that's a tall glass of water, so we'll see what happens. But this one is already on the move. It just has to contend with these two moving averages goes. Corn, man, it's funny because I was looking at this damn thing too, and it's ripping all right. We talked about it. I never pulled the trigger on this one, but it's still early stages. Still early stages, and if this is really a reversal, right here, 39 39.50 to 4 is going to be the good area to buy it. So it's not like I missed the trade yet if it's really going to reverse. At least for my strategy on how I like to execute trades. Make sure to read that scrolling ticker, goddamn. But this market it's been sold off for freaking 2 years straight. You know, it's another one of those where it's like, come on, how much can you really sell? You know, and a lot of the commodities market is like this right now, where it's been sold down so hard for so long that it's like, what can you really honestly do anymore at this point to this market? You know, and that's one of the reasons why I keep coming back to looking at these commodity markets because there's going to be money to be made here if you're paying attention. Because it's always when people stop talking about them that you want to be paying attention to them. And right now, commodity markets are in that bucket. That's why it's important to be knowledgeable and actually know what the hell exists out there. But as you guys can see, you know, the trend is still down overall. But we're watching and waiting for reversal signs, right? Because we don't want to get faked out like these previous times. Hold on. It's safe to come back. All right. So that's the idea, guys. Anytime you guys are looking at a market and you're trying to catch a reversal, you got to look out and look in. So you can make sure that when you are at something, right, that you're expecting a big move from, it makes sense. Like commodities are looking real cheap right now. Well, not oats, but the rest of them, they're looking real cheap right now. if they've been getting sold off hard. And what it means is if they're all getting cheap and they're all looking cheap at the same time, are going to step in and buy it, right? And you, as a retail trader that's looking and kind of playing from afar, you want to get there first because you have the ability to be there first. Why not? So right now, these markets are setting up for a move. I mean, look at this. This was a great move downward. 1,500 down to 900. I mean, that is $50 per point times 500 points plus 45 really to that low. So that's like $25,000 per contract if you caught that trade. And that should happen in a year and change. So let's see something here. So this contract rolled down from 15 in December, November, August, and July. Yep. All the way to 955. So that's what? 315 plus 45, 360 points times 50. That's a trade. Without having to roll contracts or do anything. Just picking a spot and slinging it. Those are the kind of trades that I like. Wait, what we working with here? Similar view, right? Similar view. Very depressed market. Nobody's talking about it. Um, and the dollar is just, this is what this thing is priced in. And it looks like we're hitting some type of long-term support down here. Uh, Jesus, what is going on there? For whatever reason, I can't use the mouse today. So let's just fix this. All right. Probably not perfect. Did not think so. Maybe something like this makes sense. Yeah, I don't know, but I do stuff like that because the market pretty much determines what's what, not me. Uh, ah, right. So that line probably coincides with this area here. But we're on a 21 day, so this is big picture point of view. When you zoom in, what does it look like? I don't know. Price ran into that, sold off, and it back in 2022. But it also had this area here, which of course went into this zone. This zone probably was too far up. But things to be aware of. All right. So let's talk about interest rates real quick, and then we'll wrap it up. Let's see here. So the Fed funds 2-year rate, the spread, excuse me, the 2-year Fed funds spread is, of course, as I always love to explain, the barometer for how far ahead or far behind the Fed is in terms of its monetary policy. And as of right now, the market is saying that the Fed is at least 5 cuts behind, closer to 6 really, because it's 25 basis points per cut. That's what's considered um, the standard for every interest rate action when it's a cut or a raise. Now, the interesting thing to note is that when markets come out of inversions, recessions typically occur. So the German yield curve is already doing this. The German yield curve is typically 3 to 6 months ahead of the US. So once it goes above zero, that's when things start to go bad in RE. So we'll keep an eye out for that. I'll keep reporting on that, and I'll probably do a little something on that as well, just do a compare and contrast for you guys, just so you guys can see what I mean. But it's the same story as what we have here. When you zoom out and you turn on that recession indicator, it's pretty clear um, what happens over time, every time. And every time the market inverts, it corrects. Right, we go negative, and then it corrects back to go above zero. There's a recession, and that's what we're looking forward to at this point in time, because the market can't be out of whack for so long, and it makes sense as if that's how it goes, because it's not. And that is what the market is telling us right now in real time. And the question is, do you realize that as a market operator? That's the question. Do you realize that? And sometimes it's hard for people to see the obvious because things are positive. There's no negative framing of it. You understand? And that's what's critical to understand about markets. You know, why is every negative a positive, and why is every positive a positive? Why is there only positives and never any negatives? Why is there never any checks? Right? So these are things that you gotta be aware of when playing these games, because it's like crypto right now, right? Like people will throw crypto to the side right now, like, oh, Bitcoin, da da da, because they suckered people into thinking there was gonna be another bull run. But no, there's no bull run to be had right now. And that's important to understand, because now is the time to set up for the major one, because there will be one, but you have to understand how it's going to materialize. It doesn't just materialize because it's on some random cycle that was existent before, because things weren't manipulated before. But now everybody's okay with things being manipulated, so things change. All right, guys. Appreciate your time this evening. It's time for your mans to hit up some grub. Y'all be easy. Peace and keep it easy.